This episode is brought to you by the book For You From Me, written by Raj Daniels. I featured Raj on episode 88 of the podcast and can genuinely say he's one of the most uniquely interesting and wise people I have ever met. He has a way of teaching practical advice through his captivating style of storytelling. I think of the book For You From Me as a lens to see the world in a more empowering way, as well as a practical guidebook to develop an effective life strategy. So make sure to check out the book For You From Me at rajdaniels.com. That's RAJDANIELS.com. What's happening, everyone, and welcome back to the Pathways to Success podcast. In the studio today, I have Abe Nadimi, and Abe is a serial entrepreneur and business consultant. Abe, welcome to the podcast,
Thank you, sir.
How are you?
I'm great.
It's good to see you. Good to see you. Abe, so when you and I first off, shout out to Jason Osborne, who sent us the connection.
That's amazing, right?
Also, we have another connection in AJ Amex.
Yes.
Right? That's actually where I first saw you, was in the video.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which was crazy. So I'm glad we were able to
I love
connect.
both those gentlemen.
They're both great, so shout out to you guys. And as a result of that conversation, we met for coffee, and then I started learning more about your entrepreneurial background. And of course, we'll talk about kind of what you're doing today, but you have a very interesting story. So start us at the beginning of kind of the 25 years of serial entrepreneurship that you've had. Give us
So the very beginning, huh?
Yeah.
So there's no romantic way to say this. Like, I started entrepreneurship with my brother as just basically out of necessity. We grew up poor.
Yeah.
And so that was the way for us to get extra money to buy, you know, stuff that wasn't, like clothing that wasn't sold at Walmart or Sears or whatever, right? And that's how it started. It's just understanding hey, we could do that. We can help you with that. You know, what do you need? And then just start doing stuff for our neighbors, for our friends, and we just made side business like that. And it also became the fact that we were taking skill sets that we were learning as kids. So really kudos to my parents for putting us in an environment that allowed us to learn skill sets such as mechanic work. Like totally, my brother and I completely know how to take apart cars. Yeah. We know how to do landscaping. We know how to do like, you know, putting drywall up. We know how to do all of those things, which all those were like, oh, you need car work? I can help you. I need the money, right, essentially. And that's how we did it.
What was so that was an example of it, but it sounds like you did multiple things. Like, what were some other like businesses that you started just cutting your teeth in entrepreneurship?
So initially, one of the craziest ones, but it sounds like it for people so young at the time. So in junior high, we were doing computer building. Yeah. So time-wise, this is like the beginning of the 90s, where we were building computers and putting Windows DOS on them and selling them. I mean, it was like that early, and they were custom-built computers. And that led into networking. So we were then getting paid to set up wireless networks at the time, which was a thing, and going to people's houses or going to small businesses and setting them up. So we were teenagers at the time. Yeah. And that led into a little bit of website work. Yeah. Horrible website work, but.
So you write code and stuff, or?
Yeah, so a little bit of the code side, a little bit of the basic, you know, drag and drop, and I forgot what the Microsoft product is. That front page, is that right?
Front page, yeah.
Yeah. So learn a little bit of that. Yeah. Learn a bit of the HTML, and that's just kind of kept on working. I got a job at UTA as taking my computer repair skills. Yeah. So while I was an undergraduate in the electrical engineering department, I got hired to help them manage the computers in the department. And then that connection and just being in the department landed me a job as a research assistant for a professor that had an office for me across the street. Yeah. So I ended up with two offices as an undergraduate, one in the main engineering hall and one in the engineering lab building. Yeah. I don't know.
So you kept learning from the skills.
But it's not even just the skills. I would say one of the biggest things that I learned was how to communicate with people, and how to make friends with people and understand what are their needs, what are their pain points, right? And so then knowing that I could do something and needed to do something and not being, I guess, too scared to say, I don't know how that works. Yeah. It's not a lie either. Like, I haven't worked on that computer, but I know how to do it. Let me try it. Yeah. Yeah, I just got jobs.
And you finished your degree. You're an engineer by training, right?
Yes, yes.
And you worked for NASA?
I got an internship at NASA, and then I got a job at Bell Helicopter when I graduated. So actually, I went from my engineering degree straight into my engineering job. Yeah. So about like 6 months before I graduated, I got a email from Lockheed that was saying, hey, we have, you know, you want to come to this job fair? So I came, submitted my resume, got called for a resume, got called for an interview, and then got a great job offer, which I then shopped against an offer from Bell Helicopter.
Yeah.
And so I was, I don't know, like 21 and a half or 20, about to be 22, and I had a job offer from Bell Helicopter paying $50,000 and a $5,000 sign-on bonus. So it was crazy money.
And what was your discipline in engineering? Like, what was your
electrical
job?
engineering.
It was electrical engineering.
Yes. So I'm an electrical engineer, and then when I had Bell Helicopter, I did avionics, which ultimately landed me a flight test engineering job, which was really cool. So I worked at Pax River, and we worked on the Cobra to Huey upgrade program for the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
And got to learn about the corporate side, I guess you'd say, especially the government contract side. Like, this is just so very not startup. How's that?
Yeah.
Like,
wow.
Complete bureaucracy everywhere.
So when did, like, the entrepreneurial side really start to take over? Because
it's always been there, man. I just can't sit still, and I love to do stuff.
Yeah.
Right? And so even while I was at Bell on nights and weekends, I started going back to do my master's.
Yeah.
And then I started working with my brother, who had just started a business in October '03. So I started immediately helping him, essentially getting his business going, nights and weekends.
Yeah.
I mean, what else are you gonna do? I don't know what people do on a normal 9-to-5 job when they get home.
When they get home.
And then they're done, you know, till the next morning, and then they're done on the weekends. I don't even know what that's about. Like, it's so weird. So for me, I'd rather find something I really like doing and just do it all the time. If that makes sense.
I'm curious, do you think entrepreneurs are born or somehow cultivated?
I don't think cultivated is probably the word I would say. I would say encouraged and cultivated. Right.
But it sounds like your personality, like what you just said. Like, what are 95 people doing after they get home?
Well, here's the thing. I think everybody's a business owner.
Yeah.
Everybody is a business. Some people just rather have a guaranteed payment for the use of their business.
Sure.
And some people will rather say, I want to have more potential and control. But it's still selling of time. So that's one thing that I understand, told my team members at one time, which was, you are a business. You are selling me time. Give me good customer service. Yeah. Right? If you think about it like that as an employee, it changes, I think, how do you go to the office? So yeah, I don't think they're. When you really think about it, nobody is. You could say some people are more entrepreneurial, but everybody's entrepreneurial. Yeah. To some degree, everybody realize, hey, how can I provide more value to the marketplace by getting a degree? Yeah. And then how can I negotiate to go get more money? And how can I secure my payment from said company? Well, it's the same thing I'm doing. It's the same thing any entrepreneur does, except they believe that they have security inside of the job and workforce, versus an entrepreneur says, I think there's not security there anyways, so might as well be in this insecure place or sit in distress and create something that I want to create exactly the way I want to create it. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah, so.
So if there was a shift, right, from going to an employee to, let's say, a full-on entrepreneurial mindset, what is that?
So I think this is that's a great question and really relevant. So at the time, my brother calls me in spring of '05. Yeah. He says, I need help. So by the way, I've been already working nights and weekends. I had taken over the eBay platform aspect. In spring of 2004, I started working with him on the wholesaling side of the business.
So just so everyone can catch up here, it is the hookah business.
This is the hookah business that I'm currently speaking of, named Social Smoke. Right. So Social Smoke, we've been in business for now going on since 2003, so going on 15 years. We sell and manufacture tobacco products in Arlington that get distributed around the world. And we do tobacco manufacturing from like dry leaf, and that was a whole story too. But anyway, so my brother...
It has reached tremendous amounts of success. It was featured, it was Inc. 500, right?
Yes, it was Inc. 500.
And also you were featured on CNN.
Yeah.
So it's not just a little hookah business, it is a big hookah business.
Yeah, we don't sell down at the corner shop. We sell to the companies that sell to the companies that sell to the corner shop. Yeah. Now. But we started as an online retail company. So what happened is in 2004, wholesale stores, small stores would call us like, how do you get these products? It was really niche back then. Yeah. And so that became like a wholesale side of our business. And I would help my brother on that part because I was on the East Coast. So it's so easy for me to call these smoke shops that are like, calling them in the afternoon and evening is perfect time for them. Yeah. So when I get home from work, I would call them. So even then I was doing this stuff. So now go all the way to 2005, and my brother says, I need help. And my first thought is he needs me to run an ad for some office manager or something on Monster. He's like, no, I need you to come help me. I'm like, oh, okay. So here to put things in perspective, right? So when I tell people jump or don't worry or what are you so scared of, let me tell you where my background is when I say that.
Yeah.
My wife at the time, when I actually leave Bell, the day I leave and walk out of Bell is basically, I want to say May the 1st. Let's call it that, right? My daughter is born July the 30th, right? So she's almost, 6 months pregnant at the time, my daughter's mother, right?
Yeah.
6 months pregnant. I don't have any cash in the bank because all the cash that I had, which is a lot by this time, I had saved a lot of my money. I poured into the business. So I was cash broke. I had to pay $1,000 a month on Cobra for the Cobra insurance.
Insurance, yeah.
Okay. So I was like, oh my God, we're having a baby. Like, this is the thing. You gotta be, keep the insurance coverage going. So I paid $1,000 a month. And I want to say my first paychecks from Social Smoke were $2,200 a month. Mind you, in the previous 2 years while I was at Bell, because of me taking a job in Maryland, I made about $230,000 over 2 years as a 24, 25, 26-year-old, something like that, right? So, but when I go to leave, there is no money in the bank. Most of the money is in Social Smoke, invested in Social Smoke. Most of, I don't have insurance. I have a pregnant wife. And I always thought the same thing that I tell people all the time. What is the worst that can happen? Yeah. I'm just going to go get I've done a good job. I'm not leaving on bad terms. I was actually leaving in a project transition anyways. Yeah. I'll just go ask him for a job back. I'll go to Lockheed. I'll go to Ball Aerospace, which was in Denver, and I was like, God, I want to live in Colorado. So it's like, I'll just apply for there. So it's not like, the conversation is when you're jumping out of the plane, it's not jump and a parachute will show up. Hopefully you don't hit the ground and die, right? It's like if you jump and you can't figure out the acrobatics in the air, no problem, because at 10,000 feet, the parachute will still show up, or you'll fall into a, vat of bubbles. Like, it's gonna be fine. You still can climb out and get a job somewhere else, unless you burn all the bridges, right? And everybody thinks of you in a bad way. Like, it's not terminal. These are not terminal decisions. This is not Russian roulette, right? It's taking calculated decisions, right? And I think some of the smarter things to do is not hopping industries without already building up a massive business on the other side, or building up some amount of business on the other side. But there's this realization. So at Bell, let's just use easy numbers. Let's say at Bell I was making $10,000 a month, right? And then I had a side hustle that was making $2,000 or $3,000 a month. Let's just say this, right? What happens is that initially, what am I doing? I'm making $12,000, $13,000, $14,000 a month, right?
Together, yeah.
Together.
Right.
This is a big financial windfall all of a sudden, like 20, 30, 40% raise. Yeah. So what do? Do I just stay in this mode where I'm making $14,000 a month? Or do I realize that I'm never going to get to the point that the side business is equal to the first job, $10,000 a month, and then jump? So I think a lot of times that's what people think, that they can flat out replace the income with what they have. The realization is that that's really hard for most people. It's you're not trying to replace the income. Yeah. You're just trying to get to the point that the side hustle is consistently providing you enough to go play in the side hustle full time, to then go back up to the 10 and beyond.
How long consistency do you think is a safe time in terms of like that recurring income? You said, right?
Oh, consistently? Well, I mean, if you just go land one client and there is no prospects, and landing the client was, you called your mom and you're like, God must love me today because a miracle happened, probably not that. Sure. But if it's like, people are blowing up my phone, people like what I'm hearing. I mean, it was pretty easy to get this sale. I'm almost landed a second sale. So here's what happens is, the reality is that business is done for most people 9 to 5. Yeah. Right? Most of your clients are available 9 to 5. Weekends and nights are great, but it's so wonderful to be able to take a meeting at 10 a.m., at 3:30, right? So if somebody called me in Dallas and says, hey, I know about the school you're building. Can you meet tomorrow at 9:43 in DFW Airport? Like, sure, sounds good. Yeah, I'll come meet the mayor. But if I have a job and I'm committed to the job and I have a meeting at the job, I can't cancel that, right? You know, that's like just horrible. And so I can't take that meeting. I'm like, well, can you meet me tomorrow night? Because I have a day job. Like, are you committed to this or not? And I think that's the reality that happens when people are making this transition. They have to understand. But because it doesn't sound right, right? What about, like, do you want to have your cardiac surgeon only be able to talk to you nights and weekends? Because during the day, no, you're like, I need you available whenever, like,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
Are you really are you my man or are you my woman or not?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that's the realization that ultimately has to happen. Like,
interesting.
That's the other stuff that happens. When did I meet you?
When did I meet you?
Yeah, when did I meet you? What time of the day?
In the morning, early morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could have met you at 3 a.m. too if I needed to.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, right? And that was a great meeting for us, but I've had 100 bazillion of those because I can do those. But imagine if on top of that, I'm only taking those meeting nights,
right?
And I'm doing my side hustle at night, and I'm trying to generate content at night. Like, it just slows everything down.
How long did it take you from the time that you quit Bell to go full-time into the business to at least replace your income?
Oh my God, it took me forever.
It took you forever?
Forever. Yes,
really?
Because if you do the graph, I should do the graph one day because I have all my tax returns.
Yeah.
I can actually graph out and tell you how long it took before making the jump to work with social, to work full-time on Social Smoke actually became financially better. I would say it was probably not until 2001.
And how many years was that?
I mean, I'm sorry, 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
7 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years.
So it took you 7 years to create the same amount of income through Social Smoke as you did
at Bell. Yeah. And I don't think, it probably wasn't even until a year or two ago that I could say I actually haven't lost money, right? So it's not just replacing income, but if you add it up to cumulative salary that I could have had, not to mention stock, bonus, 401k and all that, like I could probably go, I'll get somebody to work with me one day to recalculate all of that and put it together and figure it out, because I think that's what's important. But here's the reality of it. It also was an educational process.
Yeah.
Right? So what people do all the time is they go and they pay institutions 10, 20, 40. I don't even know what it costs to go to school right now, like your basic, basic school. But let's just say you're paying $20,000 to $30,000 a year, all said, right? So what are you doing? You're paying $30,000. You're also not making income. So in reality, economically, it's like it's probably like 50, 60,000 total hit.
Right.
Right. So they pay that for 4 years. All said and done, they come out with all this massive debt. But let's just use easy numbers. They come out of debt 4 years in, 5 years in, $100,000 in debt. To do what? To go through experiences and classes they did not like, to get homework assignments that really don't help them. And then when they come into a place like, corporate environment, what happens? Corporate boss says, I'm so happy you have that degree. You don't know anything. We have to retrain you.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So all of that versus getting paid some amount of money to work in a location and then busting your tail and then coming out at the end knowing the stuff. So if you look at it that way, I was paid to learn about entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Right? For 5 or 6, 7 years. I ended up with a PhD and a lot of things not to do.
Yeah.
Some things to do. Figure all this out in a laboratory that they paid me to be in. And so after an amount of time, I was able to now start understanding what's going on for other people's products and other people's stuff. That doesn't that make more, like, isn't that a smarter trajectory than going in and paying Harvard or MIT or wherever I get a business school degree at?
Yeah.
Right? And then you come out and you don't know anything because there's no way. It's like, come on, it's as though I grab a book here on boxing and I'm like, dude, I'm an amazing boxer. I've studied this book and their associated books for 4 solid years. Put me in the ring. You're like, no, hold on. Are you kidding me? I'm glad you understand the theory.
Yeah.
It's not possible. There's no way you can do this.
It's like an expert swimmer who's never been in a pool kind of thing. Yeah.
But that's what currently, that is the process for schooling. Isn't that true?
So let's talk about some controversial things then, okay?
Sure.
So let me ask you, so what is your thoughts on school? And here's the thing, you have all perspectives. You've been employee, you've been business owner, and you have a degree. What are your thoughts on school?
What does school mean here?
Just general? The university system, like going to school and getting a degree.
So I think it's ridiculous. I think it's just like I said, you pay all of this money into an institution that forces you through very regimented paths to come into an environment that's changing so dynamically, so quickly, and you're not ending up with the few traits that actually matter, in my opinion. One of them is critical thinking skills. One of them is project-based learning. So if you want to be a cog in the wheel, I think it's in a wonderful system. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. And then you're then coming out in an environment where somebody can hopefully grab you, train you to their system. Or you can realize that you can put all of that effort working with good mentors, like the process of finding a mentor. Somebody might be watching this going like, well, I've been looking for a mentor. If you grab a book, the author's name is your mentor. Read the book. Go find their podcast. Go find their YouTube videos. They will mentor you, right? Finally, one day when you're like, but I want to ask them a question. By the time you know enough to ask them a question, you'll have a really good question. They may want to actually reach out and answer your question. Usually, people just jump over all of that stuff. They're like, well, I want this mentor to be, Gary V. Man, you have so far to go before you can ask him a question that other people couldn't answer. So anyways, no, I think project-based learning is where it's at. I think self-directed learning is what we all do anyways. Everybody does self-directed learning, right? Everybody. It doesn't matter what it is. If you love, I don't know what, you love learning how to make rings, you will go study the YouTube, you will do this, you will do that, you will learn how to do this. Everybody does self-directed learning. We have to create an environment, and that's what the Kinetic Experience about, is ultimately creating an environment that allows people the opportunity to learn on project-based learning, self-directed, do what they want to do. But what we can do is we can hold standards. We can hold curriculum ideas in place. For example, I think one of the things that's so important right now is people skills. So that has to be taught. Like that has to be a thing before even everything else. If you can't relate to another human, then how are you going to relate to the people in your group that you're working on a project? So we have to do those basics need to be covered.
So obviously you're very passionate about talking about entrepreneurship, and you've already shared some ideas about, the schooling system. Is entrepreneurship in the classical sense of owning your own business, is that for everyone, or is being an employee a path for some others too? Like, what do you think about that?
I think what I'm really passionate about is people achieving their success, however they define it, and living a limitless life, again, the way they define it. I don't have a definition of what success is. I just recently did a speech in Dallas at the Intelligent Millionaires Network. And it's a successful guy, comes out, and I'm like, I'm sitting, as I'm getting announced, I'm like, what does success mean? Like, what does it mean for this group of people? What are they expecting that to mean? I don't, right? So anyways, I think what I'm most passionate about is people taking their foot off the brake and accelerating on what they want to accomplish. So, and I do believe everybody at some way, shape, or form is a business, whether they're quote unquote an entrepreneur, or they're just a franchisee owner, or they're selling their time, which we call freelance when you're not in a corporate environment, right? It's all the same, and it's just really knowing that what can I do, what can I help with to get people to get the foot off the brake, which is really, I think, what's actually happening is people are scared, and they have so much fear, and apply it in whatever it is, whether it's charity work, whether it's being a stay-at-home dad or whatever, just go all in on that and stop doing a crappy job. That's really what I'm really passionate about.
From a mindset perspective, if someone's in that mode, what's the best thing you can tell them to stop holding themselves back?
I think what's the worst that can happen? And actually understanding that they actually have fear. And that there are things like terms like limiting beliefs that people need to research and figure out. So this was a hard one for me. I recently did a class, and they had, I don't know, like 60 limiting beliefs on a sheet of paper. Things like, I'm too old, I'm too tall, I'm too young, all these things, right? And the speaker was asking, what's your number of limiting beliefs that you have?
Interesting.
I was shocked. I look at this list, I'm like, nope, none of them. I have no self-limiting beliefs. I didn't have on this sheet of paper anyways. Maybe one, maybe two, I don't know. Nothing that stood out at me like, yes, that's a thing for me. Some people said 17, I'm not joking. 25. I'm like, 25? You have 20? Can you imagine the life of somebody waking up in the morning going, they look in the mirror like, I'm too old. And then they turn around and they put clothes on, I'm too fat. And then they eat something like, I eat crappy. And they're just constantly beating themselves up all day.
Yeah.
That's really what's happening to so many people. I'm shocked. So what I figured out, this was an exercise for me, is that I asked myself, okay, this isn't working for me. What are moments in time that in my life that were not good, right? And so I started to write down moments in time that I did not like, or it was a bad experience. And then I was like, and then this created this belief and action in me. So I was actually able to generate self-limiting beliefs by another way of looking at it rather than looking on the sheet of paper, defining these bad moments in time, and then, right? So maybe, and this happened to me when I left the day-to-day of social smoke, I started really dedicating time to a mobile app startup that I really successfully plowed into the ground. But the post of that, I mean, just like, it's beautiful. I wish, I mean, I should find a video of what it represents, but it's really just an epic, complete crash. It's like one of those Soviet rockets at the time where they were taking off and just exploding. But like the good explosion where it's like, wow, the whole screen is white. Like that's what happened. So then after I ended up with my self-limiting beliefs, which were like, who am I to tell anybody anything on any of this stuff? I obviously can't figure it out myself, right? So I started having all of these kind of beliefs also showing up, doubt, self-doubt, all this kind of craziness was happening. So, you know, looking at these moments, but then reframing them. So one moment in time, the reframe of it was this, that I'm willing to learn in front of other people. I'm so willing to learn and push my own boundaries that I'm willing to do it live and in front of other people. And so that if I end up making a mistake, other people can also learn from my mistake.
Wow.
That's a totally different thing than...
That's a different way of seeing things,
right.
Man.
Versus the actuality, which was in 4th grade, I went to run for student council, and instead of everybody else went up there like, hi, my name is Abe, and I am running for secretary. You should vote for me because I'm going to give you popcorn and walk off stage. I actually had a speech. Like I was in 4th grade and actually wrote like a speech.
Wow.
Like a 3-minute speech or something. And I'm like, I look so stupid because everybody else did the 1-minute thing, right? Like everybody else did the 15-second pitch. And here I am walking up with like an actual speech, like, you know, chapter 9, and I would like, oh my God. And so it really made me like, I don't want to ever do that again.
Wait, why was that a bad thing? That
because
sounds extraordinary.
My perception of the moment was looking out in the sea of faces, which is always like panicked to even get up there and do that. Looking at the sea of faces at elementary going like, I totally jacked this up. My perception of it. It doesn't matter whether it's true or false. It doesn't matter whether it's true or false. It's your perception of it. And so all I had to do is reframe the perception. Now, you know, I don't even know how long, 30 years later, reframe it, which was, no. I'm willing to learn about speeches, giving a speech. So it's okay that I go up there as a 4th grader and jack that up.
Well, what was
Does
the
that
feedback?
make sense?
Well, what was the feedback during that moment that made you believe it was bad?
Well, A, I didn't win.
Okay.
And B, it wasn't like, you know, again, we're comparing apples and oranges here, right? So mine was this like long drawn out speech, which I actually got like a 6th grader to help me write and all this kind of stuff. And then this other thing, and it's like, no, this didn't work. This was horrible. What was I doing? Why did I overcomplicate this? Like all of these kind of negative beliefs, right?
I get it. That makes sense now.
Yeah. But instead of being like, that's cool. I'm so willing to learn about giving a speech that I'll totally jack that up and keep on rolling forward. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
Because look at everybody else so scared, not even willing to give a speech. So we could totally reframe these moments in time that were really bad. To be like, no, it was great. Look what I was actually able to do. Look what I learned out of that from myself. I'm so willing to learn that I'm willing to tank, you know, quit a job early and then go and fail in a business and do it again.
I love it. So the first step that I got was take inventory, an element of self-awareness to realize that they actually exist, right? Like you did in exercise to write them all down. And then you sort of isolated them, and then you analyzed them and reframed them, right?
Yeah. I would say, man, another part of this is that I think entrepreneurship, achieving your dreams is 80% mindset. 80% mindset. So understanding and knowing that this is a thing to work on is how I think about myself, how I think about those around me, how I'm perceiving the world. That to me is where I will spend all my time if I have to. Because once I get this right, strategy and tactics becomes really easy.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know if you've ever done an episode that says this is how you record a podcast, but what actually happens, you could do it. You could probably, now you've done it for so long, you probably could do it like, you know, on a 10-minute thing. Buy this camera, do this, do this. Don't worry about all this fancy stuff. Do it when you're at episode 100. Don't worry. You would do all of that, right? You give me all the tactics, but if my mindset says I look stupid in front of the camera, I'm never going to make it happen.
Right.
Right? And so I will always focus on mindset with myself or with anybody else first before any of the tactics and strategies, because that is just down the road. That's very like Karate Kid stuff, right? Like Mr. Miyagi was not immediately having to work on tactics and strategies.
Yeah.
He's working on his mindset, his body first, then advancing forward.
So I think, wow, that's awesome. So starting with the mindset and you said everything else are kind of tactics and sort of the how-to, right? So let's jump into some of the how-to for entrepreneurship, right? What are some of the most important how-tos that every entrepreneur needs to develop to be successful in business, whatever avenue that is?
Okay, I know people like to do the numbers thing, so let's try to do 3 numbers.
Let's do 3, yeah,
let's do
cool.
3. So how about knowing the difference between proximity advice and expert advice?
Proximity advice.
And expert advice.
Okay, let's unpack
So
that.
what that means is when somebody has a business idea, let's say I want to get into the car repair business.
Yeah.
Okay. I can go tell my wife, I can tell my friends, I can tell my mom, I can tell my dad. If they don't know anything about that business, they're proximity advice.
Right.
So what you can get there is you could do anything you want. That's how you end up with the dummies on American Idol that should not be singing.
Singing, right? Yeah.
Right? Then you go to the expert advice, and the experts will then say, well, hold on, do you have this kind of a certificate? Do you understand that repairing cars is so much more than repairing cars? No, I didn't know. So that's where the expert advice comes in. So let's see, number 2, I think it's about understanding financial positioning for yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're one of the individuals that's barely like all of your money is done at the end of the month, regardless of how much you're making, all of the money you make is gone by the end of the month. It's really difficult to put yourself in a position to play and learn and experiment. Okay.
Right.
We do not expect ourselves, if we were to join a sports team, we do not expect ourselves to be able to go on day number 1 and crank out a home run. It just doesn't happen.
Right.
You're like, I got to go practice. Well, where is that practice in getting a business going? So what I think is, initially you have to save your money. You have to save your money and make as much extra money as you possibly can do, possibly. And that's probably your side hustle, right? That's your side business in any way you can, any way you can. So now what you're doing is you're building up a bank, right, to get you some amount of money. So once you decide to jump, you're not trying to crank that home run out like within the first 2 bats.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people do that. It's like, no, give yourself a lot of time, right? So if you're able to shrink your financial footprint down to the bare minimum, think back on when you were, if you're in college, whatever, but think back on when you were in college or whatever, and if you especially had to pay for it yourself, you lived with very little initially, right?
Yeah.
Okay, if you can try to get some amount back to that zone, try to be poor a little bit, try to be broke, save as much money as possible, make as much money as possible, then that gives you, so that's the second one, financial positioning.
Is there a kind of specific habit in terms of how you automated the savings? Is it 10%? How do you determine the amount?
So I did that when I was at Bell, and that was very consistent.
Yeah.
I knew consistently and knew kind of what I was going to be making.
Yeah.
Right. And so I just looked at the numbers and I said, everything over this needs to go into the bank. Right. This is not about I save 10%, I blow the rest. This is I'm going to live on what little I can live on.
You can live on.
That's what it's about. So I graduated, man. I made good money, and I drove an old beat-up Mazda pickup truck.
Yeah.
I mean, like old beat-up Mazda pickup. I think so we're talking about 99, 2000, 2001. I'm driving a 1986 Mazda B2000 pickup truck, right? Like that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I could have bought a nice car like everybody else.
Yeah.
It's just no way, because I was about saving up money. I got really good advice from my mentor, a guy my dad's age at Bell. His name is Mike Kaiser. Great advice, like save your money. I told him I was going to go buy a Corvette. He's like, sounds great. When you save your money in cash, I will take you and we'll buy it together. Until then, I will wring your neck if you buy it. And you don't mess with, this guy's huge, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is when you start getting, you get 10,000 in savings, you get 25 in savings, you get 45,000 in savings, you're like, I'm not gonna go take this money and stick it in a Corvette.
Yeah.
That is the fuel for the fire that you need to go build.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, like, look at it. If Hulu, you do not need Netflix, you do not need you just don't need them. Every penny that you are outbound, you have to be really smart about it.
Yeah.
Unless you're on Netflix to watch documentaries. You're on Amazon, you got the Curiosity Channel add-on, and you're watching those classes. You know, anything else, you're just delaying or making life harder for yourself. It's like running by also simultaneously throwing weights on your back, but you're trying to win for speed. Like, and people do this all day long. Or the other thing they do is they'll run, and they're like, hey, I'm running really good, so let me just shoot myself in the foot because life can't be this good. Like, I cannot enjoy this. I have to now stumble. I have to create an obstacle for myself because I may actually win this race. And somehow they'll just, hey, I bought a house. Like, why? What happened? You had a business, you had savings, or you had a business. Yeah, I just you know, I want a place for my dog. Like, what? It happens all the time. I hear this all the time. Like, you really just did that, right? So the other one, I believe, so the third one, if I can say, is really adopting the mindset and especially essentialism and minimalism, really doing what is the most essential in your life and cutting out everything else. If somebody can develop the mindset, this mindset here, these three things, I think it puts them in a position to really get out and play into the marketplace, really figure things out. Because remember, up to this point, 25, 30, 35 years, nobody's taught them this stuff.
Yeah.
They haven't got a chance. They knew it a little bit, right? I still believe people know a lot of this stuff inherently. They haven't got a chance to practice it. So go get a chance to practice. Does that make
it does?
Does it help?
It does.
Yeah.
So one more time, the three things, just to kind of recap.
I can't do that. Let's try.
It was the mindset, right? And then the second piece was being fiscally sound about managing your personal finances to set you up for success. And I think the third one was mindset also.
I would always go back to mindset.
You would always go back to mindset.
So I'm going to go back to mindset. But the third one, if you were to break it down to a word, it would say minimalism or essentialism.
Minimalism is, okay, so got it. Okay. Really focusing, getting very hyper-focused on
cutting out all the crap.
Yeah.
Cutting out everything that's not directly related to you accomplishing your dream. And that is not, I did not say money. I have not talked about money in this thing at all. I don't think. It doesn't really matter. Yeah. Right? It's about accomplishing your dream. And does it really matter to you or does it not? And everybody will say it does, but they don't want to. And I go to the fourth thing. This is like 3.1. Sure. This is my new thing. So I figured out, I think there's one self-limiting belief, which is fear. Yeah. Okay? It shows up in different forms. And I think I'm trying to think if there's the one core must-have fundamental positive trait, which right now I'm still playing around with the concept, but it's grit. Grit. Maybe drive too. I'm not sure if it's grit and drive, but I think it's grit. Grit. Just the willingness to stay in something. Everything else can go, right? Because you can have a dream. It's not about dreaming, right? Everybody's got dreams. But if you have the grit to go with it, then you will figure out that dream and make it happen. You will learn, like, okay, my experts are telling me that I suck as a person. Let me go work on personality. I'm going to grind through EQ classes until I learn how to relate with humans. Okay, now I'm relating with humans and I suck at sales. I'm going to grind through the sales books because I think that's it. That's the only one that matters. Because everything else becomes a derivative. Because you can learn great sales skills and then not have the grit to apply them in the marketplace. Yeah. I love it. What is that going to, that's not going to go anywhere.
I want to talk about two more things.
Two more things.
Something that you kept consistently saying is one of the most critical things that you can learn is dealing in human relationships. Yes. Give us one great thing about how to effectively deal with people.
One great thing. How about knowing at all times that it's not, so I use the expression that, and it's this thing probably people know, I'll remind them, what's in it for me? That is what everybody else, I know that's what you're listening to, that's what you're listening to, that's what you're listening to. Everybody thinks of it that way. Yeah. What's in it for me? Knowing and understanding that means that when I'm interacting with somebody, it's not about what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm listening to them. I'm listening to them, and I'm listening to them from a nuanced perspective. I don't think of humans as like one thing. It's like a human. No, I think of it as like a piano, right? There's all of these key elements to this human. Listen to them, right? If you think of a piano, it's this extremely complex instrument. It's not only the keys, the white keys, the black keys. There's also like the foot pedals. I don't even know all this other stuff, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing here in a human. Listen to what they're saying, because then when you understand what they're saying, then you understand where their pain points are. You understand where their happiness is, and then you could become their friend, not an acquaintance, true friend. If you're willing to listen and be a friend, I think things just work themselves out. But that's a damn hard thing to do, right?
Such good advice, Abe. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I think that's why the networking things don't work for me.
Yeah.
Like, hey, what do you do? I don't know. What am I going to say?
Yeah.
Right? If I ask you, what do you do? And you're just going to say something, and I'm like, well, I don't need a staffing guy right now. I'm gone.
Yeah.
That doesn't really help. Versus we become friends, and then I learned that maybe there's something that you need that I can provide you, or vice versa. And that might be 7 months down the road. It might be a year down the road. Totally different thing. And I think that is so valuable in the people relation skills.
I love it. And that's actually sort of a prelude to my final thing, which is sales. Obviously, is everyone, it's so critical, right? How do you go from cold prospect to trust? What does that process look like?
Okay, so I think that's a very interesting. I love inbound, by the way.
Yeah.
So I love to be able to do things that provide me an inbound. So that's number one.
Okay.
Rather than walking through the door. And I'm not saying that it's not a thing.
Sure.
It's just not something. I also couldn't walk up to people and say, hi, I'm Abe, to meet a girl. Like, that's just not it wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But I would say what's really important is, let's say you do get successful on the inbound, content generation, whatever, to help you on the inbound.
Yeah.
So again, listening to what they're talking about, listening to what their pain points are, before you start shoving things across the table for proposals.
Yeah.
Because now it's like, you were not listening to me. You are selling me on what you need to sell me, versus you're selling me a solution to my problem. You actually listened to me. You actually tailored your product to me. So case in point, last night, we go to a tapas restaurant. My wife has her 2 friends in town. There's 4 of us on the table. We order an appetizer plate that had 3 pieces. And she's like, you know what? I'm gonna make it 4 for you. Hey, you know what? I wanna get this big cheese plate. It says 5 for this price, but there's 6 cheeses. Don't worry, I'll put 6 on there for you. She upcharged me for the cheese plate. I didn't care. She was willing to listen to me and modify her proposed solution to solve my real pain point. It's not about me. And I get it all the time, but I'm trying to sell, but why are you trying to sell the person? They actually don't need what you're selling. They don't need it. So why don't you listen to them? Maybe there's a referral that you can make. Maybe you can take the person out to lunch, become their friend for real. For real.
Real, yeah.
Right? Like really. And the trust thing, if you're not, okay, the censored version of this, if you actually are a good person, trust happens.
Oh, that's
like,
good. No, that's good.
I think if you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'm a legitimate good person.
Yeah.
I'm not forcing my ideas on people. I'm not judging everybody. I'm not all of these things. I think it just works itself out.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I think this way, right? Like get some of these pieces rolling, get these balls rolling, and things just work themselves out.
Yeah.
And try to actually be friends. I get the thing on LinkedIn.
It's amazing.
This is LinkedIn advice.
Yeah.
Friend me on LinkedIn to immediately then pitch me. You don't know anything about me.
Right.
Why would I ever do business with you? I believe that the only way business actually happens is in trust. Or if there's no trust, it's my ability to basically charge back the credit card, right? Which is like my trust in the credit card company.
Yeah.
Right? So trust is that. And that's where the mobile app was based around a referral network based out of trust inside of the people you already knew. But anyways, so trust. So are you a trustworthy person? Do you honor your commitments? If you are late, do you fix the problem? Right? Like all of that is, these are the core fundamentals, and then all of a sudden trust happens. Does that make sense?
It does, dude. And I'm smiling
It's
because
so
it's
damn
so
easy.
Yeah.
But it's so easy, but it's also nuanced and difficult for
Yeah.
people that are not inherently that. People that inherently walk in the room going like, this is, who's going to help me today?
Yeah.
Who's going to do something for me? Let me go tell everybody what I'm doing. Let me go pass out my business card to everybody. Like, some people you're going to do some business with, but that's not what a lot of people want. They want to get this meteoric success, which is not going to happen. People don't trust and like you, in my opinion.
No, that's so true, man. Like, because I see so many salespeople that are involved in the tactics. How many phone calls? And there's like, that has its merit. But dude, if you're not a person of value, if you're actually trying to help someone and you believe in what you're trying to do, objections melt away, fear goes away, all that kind of stuff. That's why I'm vibing with you right now. And exactly what you're saying.
Social Smoke was built not on massive marketing budget. It was built on connections with our customers.
Yeah.
There's a dude in Oklahoma. He's got our logo tattooed on his arm.
That is loyalty.
And I messaged him the other day on Facebook, and I said, bro, do you still have that? He goes, I wouldn't take that off for anything. As a matter of fact, I'm angry I didn't put it on my forehead.
Wow.
And we have connections like that with people. You know, I have a buddy named Mike in Pennsylvania, same thing. And you know my connection with him? This is listening. I saw him post on Facebook on one of the comments, which was something to the effect like, when my wife and I met, you know, hanging out with a hookah pipe was like how we connected. And we basically started this process right after we met, right? And we found you guys essentially right at the same time. So I always relate you with my marriage in a sense, right? Like your brand, because it's a thing that we do, right? So what did I do? My brother and I send him a package, a little care package in the mail. Here's a hookah, here's some tobacco, happy anniversary, for free. My cost, I don't know, whatever, 25 bucks. Still talk to the guy till today, loyal as hell. Always asking me, what can I do to help you? I'm not in that anymore. He's not asking for tobacco, right? Because I'm actually listening and understanding what my customer is saying and helping them out. So sales guys need to listen. Like, I'm sorry, I cannot, for example, okay, sales guy, I'm listening. Okay, I'm sorry, I have to go to a kid's doctor appointment. Can we talk? I need to talk to you about this later, John. He's back on the phone with John, and John is talking to me about his sales stuff again. It would be nice to say, like, hold on, forget the sales stuff for a second. Is your kid okay? What's going on? Well, this. Okay, cool. He data records that, and then 3 days later says, hey, how's that sinus infection going? Great. And then stops. Not like, sinus infection, great. Hey, so let me tell you about this new product. No, just stop and move on. Come back to that later. And so what that really means is that you cannot fake this.
Yeah.
Right? You cannot keep this, in my opinion, you cannot keep this many balls up in the air by faking it.
Yeah.
Just truly do care. Like, is the person's kid okay? If it really matters to you, you're gonna check back on the person later.
Yeah.
Our buddy Jason was sick. 2 days later, I'm like, hey, how you doing, bud? I was not trying to pitch him anything. I was legitimately like, are you okay? Like, you know, and I know the flu was just a thing, but just care. I don't know, man, I ramble a lot, sorry.
Abe, I'm a believer, dude. I'm a believer in you,
what?
in your the school that you're building, man. So please tell us about the school.
So the school. So it started off with this idea that I didn't like. I loved consulting and the business strategy stuff, but the reality is I didn't have a big impact. And so what I really wanted to do is like, okay, how can I help entrepreneurs at a more basic level? Because I'm coming in on a strategy and realizing that the mindset part's not there, right? So okay, let's figure this out. But then I married this idea together, which is the mobile app idea, right?
Yeah.
So all that failure, was it a failure? Look how much I learned.
Well, yeah.
So I realized like I still want to connect my friends with my other friends. I still want to connect the people that I know that are experts in their field with the businesses and the friends that need that service because I know they're going to get taken care of, right? I know, for example, a Jason Osborne or a Janica Morton or a Ken Hansen will take care of you. These are good people. So I thought, okay, let's create a school that I can bring this information to these group of people. Then I realized, like, wait a second, that's not enough because I have a 3-year-old son who is definitely an entrepreneur. I mean, at least I perceive him to be an entrepreneur right now, for sure.
You can tell. Wow.
Oh my gosh. We said it's not birth, but it's not. It's just traits, and I think he has these traits inherently. So maybe he'll be an entrepreneur. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to put my kid in a grade school. There's just no way. But I'm not going to keep him in a closet at home. So we have to have essentially what's going to become a cradle to grave entrepreneurial school.
Oh my god.
So we started grade school with self-directed learning, project-based learning. So one day that 12-year-old boy, if he's interested in video production, may be able to work with the older kids on a video project, which are working with a business that needs video work. So they're actually learning these skills all the way through, and then we have the teachers in the middle that are guiding them, because most entrepreneurs want to help other entrepreneurs, right? That's why you have audience members, speakers here that want to help out. Just put it all together. And then in the middle, we had something called the Founders Guild, which is probably going to be targeting anybody, but I would imagine the bulk is going to be, junior high, high school, college age individuals. And it's starting fundamental, because I realized that we cannot really truly bring back the apprentice model, which is what ultimately we're going to do, is bring back that model where if you have that interest, we're going to pair you with a professional, right? And you're going to work with that professional, providing value to the professional while the professional is teaching you. So 5 or 6 years later, you can say, I am an expert in this. So I asked a surgeon, I'll get to that. I asked a surgeon who does like in the fancy body parts, right? Like not on a toe or anything, but like in here.
Sure, yeah.
Could you teach me? He says, yeah, I could teach you to be a surgeon. Given you stay with me for enough time, I will let you operate on my patients. So if a surgeon can say that on operating on a liver or a kidney, then you can surely teach somebody how to run a gas station, how to do mobile apps, how to do, right?
And in that context, he said, as long as you stay with, even without the educational.
Oh yeah, because I will teach you what you need. I will teach you. So that this is human life stuff
This
involved.
is a game changer, man.
I think, what's really what needs to happen, because so guess what? Why can a 12-year-old not provide value?
Yeah.
Why does an 18-year-old have to pay $45,000 a year into a school to come out with the skills that they really are not using, and in all of this time they're not helping the marketplace? Instead, why don't we shift it around and say, learn through these projects, learn what you like, learn self-directed style. We're not going to hold you back. But so in that process of eventually bringing back the apprentice model, is that we have to have a foundational course. We have to have a pre-apprentice class.
Yeah.
We need to bring back communication skills. We need to bring back business etiquette.
Yeah.
Hypothetically, if I had my intern here with me and he didn't have good table manners, this would make this whole process really awkward. Yeah. So we want to be able to have interns and apprentices out there with the professionals, and the professionals are super happy. Like, they have that business etiquette about them. They know how to sit, they know when to talk, all of those things that are so important in a business partner, right? So we have that, and then eventually like a work, just basically how to work, how to actually close down a business, how to file papers, how to scan papers, how to organize, how to handle receipts. These are the fundamentals that allow someone to be an intern somewhere, in my opinion. Yeah. Allow someone to finally walk in the door here and say, I'm ready to start the 7-year mobile app apprentice project. Or I want to be, in HR, teach me. And eventually you would have, for example, if you were a teacher here, and having an apprentice, we'd have you like, what is the path that you're going to take this apprentice on? Because we don't want them just sitting around getting coffee for you all day long.
Sure, yeah.
And then you would start at the basics, like this is why this, and then but by year 2, they're part of interviewing with you. Yeah. By year 5, they're doing all the interviews, and you just kind of help out. By year 7, they're done. Yeah. They're ready to start their own business, and you're so happy, and you're like, great, go knock it out. And they provided you value all the way through. I think that makes more sense than what we are doing right now. Yeah. So I think I'm 2 words I don't like is grind. I think I used this today, but I don't like it. Grind and disrupt. And I'll tell you why. Grind, to me, never makes sense. Like from a mechanical perspective or helicopter perspective,
engineer,
you just don't want anything grinding.
Oh, that's a great perspective.
Right? Like, think about it. Unless you are...
It's friction.
Yeah. You are in the friction mode. Yeah. No, I don't. Like, why would I want that? I want that... you don't pay money for your high-end sports car to grind down every time you hit the brakes like something is wrong. Right. So I don't like grind. I think that's kind of a... I understand what they're trying to say.
Sure, yeah.
Just grit your way through that, drive your way through that problem. And the other one is disrupt. Certain systems are never going to get disrupted. They need to be replaced. Do not disrupt. Just replace them. We did not... Uber did not disrupt the taxi cab industry at all. Just replaced it. It just flat out said that doesn't exist anymore. That thing shouldn't be here anymore. Because what happens, and this is so true in all countries, but I know, United States, is that established businesses end up putting their tentacles into the law system, right? So you cannot have an environment that works to disrupt this, because what you are actually saying is that you're going to piss off somebody who's making mountains of money in this system. They will defend that tooth and nail. That's why I am sure somebody went to the big taxi cab companies in New York and said, hey, let's put a mobile app in this. And they said, yeah, right. I don't need to pay you. I got this thing already figured out. I'm making good money. No one's bugging me. I promise you, surely somebody went to go give them an app to let them run their show, right? And it doesn't work. So look at Kodak. They couldn't disrupt they couldn't do their own thing because they didn't want to replace what they already had, which they had a distribution network, they had these products, they had these factories, they had these employees. They were not willing to change that. And so somebody had to come out with the digital camera solution on the phones and just flat out replace it. So I don't believe in disrupt, I believe in replace, especially in these fundamental systems.
Yeah.
Right? These fundamental systems like education and clean water and recycling, they just flat out need to be replaced, and let the old let the old system figure itself out. And my new little phrase I've been saying right now is entrepreneurship is not a birth defect. This is what we do in school. The kid that's so good at networking, they get in trouble for talking.
Yeah.
Right? That's not or they get in trouble for renting pencils out. This is the thing. My daughter did this one day. So I bought her this, so I bought her, I don't know why, this pencil that was like this long from somewhere I went. And so of course it was a thing at school, like, oh my gosh. And so she rented out the pencil for $1 and then she got in trouble for that.
That's crazy.
That is not a bad skill.
No.
That is, or the talking is not a bad skill. I understand in that environment it does not work.
Yeah.
But that's why the environment doesn't make sense. In here, that kid that's all talkative, that's your sales reps. Those are your inherent sales reps.
That's right.
So funny, I'm judging a science fair like a couple weeks ago.
I love it.
Right?
I love it.
And so watch this. I go up and the guy, I'm like, what's your project? He goes, well, I have an incline. This is the wall, right? Like here's the wall. Here's the incline. I wanted to measure if the ball speed, 8th grade, if the ball rolls down faster depending on the incline. So I look at him and I say, you're full of shit. But you know that. He's laughing. So what I'm going to actually have you do, and I'm going to grade you on how well you sell me this. Because I know, and I could just tell. Like I just immediately walk up like, this kid, he is not a scientist. He did not do this for science. He's straight up a salesperson, right? I was like, sell me on this. And he actually sells me on why this was a valid experiment.
What do you say?
I don't know. He did his thing. He did his pitch.
But it worked.
It worked enough.
Yeah.
That I was like, wow. Yeah, you have a sales skill. So what I should have done is paired you up with the science kid who's like, when you talk to them, they're like, look, I don't know why I'm doing this, right? Like pair these two kids up together.
Yeah.
And then they both learn from each other, right? That would actually have made more sense. That's that kid's skill set. That kid's skill set did not get practiced and exercised.
Yeah.
Except for me coming in and realizing that this was nonsense and he needed to practice his skill.
Yeah.
And I would imagine, I promise you, give that guy like three months even. 3 months, you'd walk around and he would just wow you in front of the way he would talk to people in front of you. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's not a birth defect.
No, and I love that approach.
We need to cultivate these skills.
Because schools have a tendency to kind of put you in a box and do things one way versus tapping into the unique talents and abilities of the individual. Because everyone seems to kind of have a nature.
And they have to do that, right? That is the whole structure. It is regimented. You're in math class right now. You have to do this. We got to get you on the STAR exam for the year. We got all of that. It's not working. It's not working. I know it's not working. Everybody else knows it's not working. But we still do the same stuff. And people my age that have 12-year-olds and 10-year-olds are talking about what college their kids are going to go to. I'm like, why are you repeating the same thing? Yeah. The kid wants to go to college. Great. I'm not saying don't. A lot of I don't know if you hear me, it's about choice, right? But don't force that on them. Maybe that 18-year-old needs 2 years off. Like, you're 18 years old. If you're watching this and you're over 30, you understand, like, that's really young. At 18-year-old, you're supposed to go get 100K in debt, to go try to figure out what you're going to do for the rest of your life. Sounds kind of crazy. Why are we doing that? And then they're strapped. Like they can't do anything else. They come out, they go get a job, they have nice clothes, nice car, nice apartment, paying down debt for 10 years. Like if it takes you 10 years to pay off a $50,000 debt, like you've not structured things right. And then all of a sudden, you cannot disrupt your life. You have to flat out replace your life with a new version that's going to get you to the point that 5 years down the road, you're like, oh my God, I can actually get out of that.
Yeah.
It's so hard. Like, let's fix this. I really would love to point that we're not fixing broken adults anymore. How cool would that be?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Man. Dude, Abe, I can talk to you forever. And oh my gosh, I got a tremendous amount of value from this conversation. And dude, I'm a believer in what you're doing. I am a real believer in what you're doing because I personally have been craving something exactly like that for 10 years. So
I do want to say something. I do believe entrepreneurs are in a unique position to impact their communities. So we are in a unique position because our businesses usually can't have more than one person, right? I do believe at that point, like there's a difference between a hobby and a business. Yeah. So when you actually have a business where you can step out from the day to day, that's when I really believe you have a business. Up till then, it's a good hobby. Yeah. And you can actually have employees and team members and right in your community and put an impact. So that said, the thing that we're passionate about, one of the biggest projects that we're passionate on right now, there's a few of them, but I'll bring up this one, which is raising awareness for child sex trafficking. Oh, okay. This is a big deal, like huge, 20, 30, 40%. I mean, it's just a massive number of kids that are in this problem, and it's massive. And so for the entrepreneurs that are out there wondering how they can help out, there's an organization in Florida called Christie House. They're raising money for eradicating sex trafficking, eradicating child trafficking. We have a website. It's Christie House. Well, you put up the link. Christie House, really important. We have to do that. This doesn't make sense. But in that, as an adult, remember something to the effect of 1 out of 4 girls and 1 out of every 6 boys has been a victim of sexual assault. This is a massive number. That means the vast majority of influencers out there on social media, some of them have been abused. We need to bring their voices out and say, that happened to you as a child. There's no shame. There's none of that. There's no judgment. Help other adults that have been victimized and abused get the help that they need so they're not turning around and hurting another life. And I do believe damaged people hurt damaged people and hurt people hurt people. So that's the thing. So that's what I'm really passionate about too, is we need to provide this as a platform for entrepreneurship like all the time. Like we need to be changing the world, not just making money. So
I love it. Abe, tell us how else we can connect with you, learn more about the school, and just, man, there's just so much that you shared, man. How do people connect with you?
Well,
Abe?
Put all those links up, right?
Yeah, we'll get all that down in the show notes for sure.
Yeah, just reach out. The company, the school is called the Kinetic Experience, and that's for, I believe the difference between potential and kinetic energy. Potential is you could take a rock and put it at the top of a building, and if it just sits there, it's got a massive amount of potential. This is a physics term. It's got a lot of potential, but until that rock falls off that building and starts to move, it then has kinetic energy, can actually do something for you. So it's really taking this potential and turning it into kinetic energy.
Oh my God, I love your engineering metaphors, man.
What's up? That's what engineering is, just applied science and business, man.
I love it, man. Oh my gosh, Abe, this has been a blast, man. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast,
I really
man.
appreciate you.
And everyone, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Pathways to Success podcast. Please connect with Abe. We'll have all of his contact information in the show notes, and we'll see you next week on the next episode of the Pathways to Success.